The message arrived while the kettle sang, a single line that cut the room in two. I bought their house, stitched their curtains and painted hope into quiet corners. Yet here was the verdict. Only family. The cup cooled untouched as memory unspooled. Receipts framed as gratitude, favours renamed as duty. I typed one word back and felt the floor settle. That was the last moment I mistook silence for peace. What followed was the long, steady art of taking my name back. The street was quiet in the late afternoon, the kind of quiet that lets you hear a loose screw on a delivery truck rattle with each turn of the wheel. Evelyn Carter stood at the curb of Maple Ridge subdivision and looked at the house she had once called a gift. Fresh paint on the eaves caught the pale Oregon light. Somewhere inside, a drawer slid shut and a soft thud answered, like a heartbeat behind walls she had paid to raise. I bought them a future, her mind said, simple as a truth you do not dare to speak aloud. They bought me silence. The moment held. Then she turned away, and the sound of the street returned. A bicycle chain whispering, a sprinkler ticking, a dog rustling a hedge. The world went on exactly as it always had, except for the line that had just been drawn and could not be erased. In her kitchen at the apartment a few miles away, the evening gathered in the window like a darker pane of glass. Evelyn set her tote on the chair and unrolled a cotton cloth across the table. She placed objects with a care that made each one into a small, secular ritual, a paint chip labelled Sage Meadow, an envelope from a hardware store with a neat column of itemized purchases, a printout from the escrow office that read Paid in Full, and a photo of two children, long grown, smiling in front of a castle made of fiberglass and memory. Under the photo in pencil she wrote, Disneyland, age 7, paid by Mom. The kettle clicked. She poured the water and let the tea steep, but she did not wait to drink it. She watched the steam rise, then turn invisible, as if the room had swallowed it without a trace. At the housewarming months earlier, the rooms had smelled like fresh-cut pine and soap. Evelyn had moved through the space as one might move through a chapel, palms open, eyes soft. She had adjusted a lampshade so it would not glare in photographs. She had tugged the corner of a rug so it rested square. When the guests had thinned and the music turned low, Brooke Ellis had taken her hands. Brooke's eyes had glistened with the easy theatrical tenderness that photographs love. You will always have a room here, Brooke had said. You know that. Evelyn had squeezed her fingers once, a blessing with no words. It had seemed enough to believe. Her phone lit the kitchen now with a small cold square of light. The message arrived without ceremony. Mom, you will not be joining the cruise. Brooke prefers to keep it only family. For a long time she did not move. The steam from the tea had gone entirely. The room felt orderly, and then it felt empty, and then it felt like something was missing that could not be named. She typed one word. She read it. She erased it. She typed it again. Okay. She pressed send and set the phone face down. The clock on the stove marked the minutes in blue. She listened to it the way one listens to a drip behind a wall. Then she lifted the phone and scrolled to Linda Moore. Linda arrived an hour later with a paper sack and the straightforward kindness of someone who does not require a script. She did not hug first. She looked at Evelyn's face and placed the sack on the counter. Heat this later, Linda said. For now, sit with me. They sat. The apartment made a soft sound as it settled into night. I thought it was a moment, Evelyn said, her voice even. But it is a pattern. I made myself useful until I disappeared. You raised a good man, Linda answered. You also taught him that the ground under his feet would always hold, because you were the ground. Some people mistake that for a flaw that never ends. And Brooke, Evelyn said, and stopped. She did not want bitterness in her mouth. It tasted like old medicine. Brooke saw a system that worked for her, Linda replied. People rarely replace systems that benefit them. Evelyn stood and reached for a file box in the pantry. She set it between them and lifted the lid. Inside were neat stacks of statements, receipts, and a small spiral notebook with dates and short notes written in the clean, legible hand of a teacher. She did not speak about generosity or sacrifice. She did not need to. The order was its own testimony. "Look with me," she said. They moved to the desk. Evelyn opened her laptop and the glow changed the room. She signed into the bank without haste. The screen resolved into numbers and columns. She went to the activity tab and filtered the entries. Months of small withdrawals appeared like breadcrumbs that someone had hoped would be too small to notice. $58. $114. $304. The labels were tidy and domestic. Home repair, emergency, HOA add-on. Some were marked as recurring. She clicked a blue link that read, Manage Payees. There it was. A line for a utility account with a secondary authorization set to B. Ellis, not owner. Authorized to initiate bill pay. Evelyn took a breath, then exhaled. She clicked Details, then History, and saw the start date 8 months earlier, 2 weeks after the housewarming. "Print these," Linda said. Evelyn printed. While the pages emerged, she found the export button and saved the transactions as a PDF, intuitively cataloguing. She took a pen and circled dates, added arrows, wrote small notes to herself in the margin. Call utility, ask bank for logs, request vendor authorization forms. She did not raise her voice. She did not rehearse speeches. She let the facts arrive one by one until they made a shape that could not be mistaken for anything else. "You have Daniel," Linda said. "I have Daniel," Evelyn answered. She dialed his office and left a message without pleading or apology. She asked for a meeting the following week. She stated she would bring documents. She ended the call and opened her email to send a summary to herself with attachments. The subject line read Timeline. She paused. Something in the drafting window felt incomplete. She scrolled to the Settings tab, an old habit from years of teaching when filters and folders had kept 1,000 small correspondences from turning into a flood. On the left, a column of options blinked patiently. She clicked on Filters and blocked addresses. A single entry waited there, set to forward any message that included the words bill, statement, or receipt to an external address. The instruction had a created date and a name. Forward to Brooke Ellis Homeo. Created 8 months ago. Applies to all mail matching keywords. Action, skip inbox, mark as read, forward. Evelyn did not move at once. She read the line again, as if the letters might change when glanced at from a different angle. She clicked the rule open and saw the fields. Criteria, destination, auto-delete after forward. The rule did not mention her by name because it did not need to. It had been built to pass around her, not through her. Linda leaned in. The light from the screen made her face a shade of silver. "That is not a mistake," Linda said. "No," Evelyn replied. The word had weight and temperature. She took a screenshot and saved it. She printed the page and slipped it into a clear sleeve. She opened a new note in her timeline and typed, "Email rule created 2 weeks after housewarming. Keywords broad. Purpose, concealment." Outside, a car door closed somewhere down the block. A neighbour's footsteps crossed a hallway. The ordinary world kept its ordinary course. Evelyn reached for the folder on the table and slid the new page into the front pocket. "This was not an accident," she said. Her voice did not tremble. It did not rise. It did not need to. The cursor on her screen blinked, patient and precise. She clicked Save, then Sign Out, and sat back in the chair as if she had finally claimed the seat. The tea on the counter had gone cold. She poured it down the sink and washed the mug until it was clean enough to catch the light. Daniel Whitaker's office faced the river, a ribbon of cold light sliding beneath a steel bridge. The walls were quiet and practical. No trophies. No declarations. Only framed photographs of trailheads and a single wooden clock that ticked as if it were keeping time for a long hike rather than a lawsuit. Evelyn placed her folder on the table and sat with her spine straight, the way she had sat when proctoring exams. She felt the same custodian calm, watchful, steady, unwilling to be distracted by whispers. Daniel reviewed each page without rushing. He did not interrupt her with reassurances. He did not crowd her silence. He marked the auto-forward rule with a paper tab. He drew a small square around the bank entries that showed recurring payments. He wrote the word pattern and underlined it once. "Here is what we can do," he said. His voice was even and humane. "Revoke any power of attorney that exists. Place temporary fraud alerts with the credit bureaus. Notify the bank's internal investigation unit and ask for audit logs. For the house, we cannot reverse a deed with a phone call. If there was deception or coercion, we may file a quiet title action or record a notice that something is in dispute. That will freeze certain transactions. All of this takes time, but time is a tool when you fill it with precise steps." Evelyn listened as if he were reciting a lesson she already knew in her bones. "Please begin," she said. Daniel opened a clean template and drafted a revocation of power of attorney, even though Evelyn had never granted Brooke formal control. He preferred to close all doors, even the doors no one claimed to have used. He printed the letters, and the receptionist guided Evelyn to a notary. The stamp landed with a formal pressure, like a seal pressed into wax. Back at the desk, Daniel sent certified copies to the bank, the utility companies, and the homeowners association. He placed a separate packet in a blue envelope marked for court and slid it into a locked drawer. "I will ask a forensic accountant to join us," he said. "She will not conjure instant answers. She will build a timeline." "Sophia Ramirez?" Evelyn asked. She had seen the name in local articles about consumer fraud. Daniel nodded. "She is patient and exacting." They met Sophia the next morning in a conference room that smelled faintly of lemon polish. Sophia wore a grey blazer and the undramatic expression of a person who trusts documents more than speeches. She listened to Evelyn's description with the receptivity of clean paper. Then she mapped dates on a whiteboard, the housewarming, the first recurring payment, the auto-forward rule, the labels that had disguised extractions as housekeeping. "I will request the internet protocol logs for your bank sign-ins," Sophia said. "If the bank provides them, we can see devices and approximate locations. I will also request vendor authorization forms. Many utility companies record who adds a payer or changes notice settings. We will look for patterns and we will be patient." The word patient did not sound like delay. It sounded like care. Days settled into a disciplined rhythm. In the mornings, Evelyn documented small things with a teacher's precision. Account numbers protected, passwords changed, two-factor authentication enabled. She placed dates beside actions and actions beside receipts. At noon, Sophia sent brief updates. She did not promise quick victories. She offered fragments that, when placed together, began to resemble a story that was not accidental. A week into the inquiry, Sophia slid a printout across the table. 2 sign-ins to your bank occurred at 6:17 a.m. and 10:42 p.m. from the same tablet, she said. The internet protocol address resolves to Jason Street. The device appears in other logs associated with Brooke's email address. That does not prove criminal intent. It does demonstrate that access originated from their home, not yours. Evelyn felt something inside her shift. Not collapse. Not triumph. A small, precise click, as if a gear had found its lane at last. That evening, Evelyn opened a shoebox of photographs. Jason at 8, holding a paper crown from a birthday pizza place. Jason at 12, holding a model rocket on a field that smelled like cut grass. She let the images pass through her hands, and for a brief, lucid moment, grief and clarity stood side by side in her chest, like two figures on a narrow bridge who would not step aside for the other. The next morning brought a different kind of evidence. An email from a utility company confirmed an e-signature authorization for combined billing. The signature field displayed Evelyn's name, elegant and wrong. The metadata showed a device type she did not own. Sophia highlighted the discrepancy with a yellow pen. "This item cannot stand alone," Sophia said. "But with the other elements, it supports a theory. Someone consolidated control." Midweek, Daniel called with a measured urgency. "I would like you to consider a temporary restraining order," he said. "The objective is narrow. It will prohibit anyone from compelling you to sign new documents or from accessing your accounts while we investigate. It can also pause any refinance efforts tied to that house. We will need to present a clean timeline to the judge." "I have the timeline," Evelyn answered. "I am living inside it." They set the motion in motion. Paper moved through corridors. A hearing date was requested. The calendar clerk spoke in dates and hour blocks, the pure grammar of process. On Friday morning, the envelope appeared under Evelyn's door. She did not hear a knock. She did not hear retreating steps. The paper waited like a pale animal, quiet and expectant. She lifted it with care and opened it with a butter knife so the seam would not tear jaggedly. Inside was language that clothed power in politeness. Estate updates, household authorizations, medical directives. Near the bottom, a clause that widened like a river mouth. Broad authority, including the right to place the principal in a care facility and manage admission. The lines were clipped and tidy. The signature block waited, patient and blank. Evelyn laid each page flat and took photographs with her phone. She saved the images to a folder labelled Evidence. She wrote the time in the corner of a yellow sticky note and pressed it to the envelope. Then she called Daniel. He listened without interrupting, then said, "Bring it now." In his office, Daniel read in silence. When he reached the placement clause, he exhaled and set the page down as if it were warm. "This is overbroad," he said. "If a judge believes you were being steered toward it without informed consent, the court will not look kindly on this tactic. We will include it in our motion as an exhibit. We will also ask for an order instructing them to cease any attempt to obtain new authority pending the hearing," he typed. Steady and clear. The printer hummed. The notary's stamp landed again. Evelyn signed statements that affirmed a simple pledge. "I understood and I refused." She walked each document to the receptionist, as if carrying clean linen. That night the apartment felt larger, as if boundaries had pushed the walls outward by an inch. Still, the hour between midnight and morning holds its own weather. Evelyn lay awake and listened to the building breathe. She reached for her phone, tempted to reread the past as if the past might be edited by a second gaze. Instead, she called Linda. "I am not angry," Evelyn said. "I am awake." "Anger burns fast," Linda answered. "Awake endures. Keep writing. Keep filing. Let the facts do the heavy lifting." Sunday arrived with a sky the colour of pewter. Evelyn made tea and stood at the window. Somewhere, a cruise ship cut a white groove through cold water. She imagined Jason on a deck chair, sunglasses in his hair, unaware of the motion beneath him. She imagined Brooke drafting a list of tasks to complete when they returned. She did not imagine the past anymore. She imagined the next right thing. Near noon, an email arrived from Daniel's paralegal. The subject line was simple: court notice. Evelyn opened it with a breath held in her throat. The hearing on the temporary restraining order was scheduled for the day before the cruise returned. the single sentence glowed in the quiet like a small, contained fire. Evelyn placed both palms flat on the counter and let the heat of resolve rise through her hands. Outside, a neighbour's child laughed, a sound like water over stones. Evelyn closed the laptop and looked at the tidy stack of folders on the table. She did not need to rehearse what she would say. She had already said it, line by line in the most faithful language she knew. Dates, amounts, signatures, and the spaces where a signature had not been given. The courthouse was a modest building of glass and pale stone that caught the morning in a flat sheen. Evelyn stood with her hands folded around a leather folder, as if it were a prayer book. The corridor smelled faintly of coffee and copier heat. A bailiff opened the courtroom door with the ceremony of a librarian. Inside, the air was cool and careful. A clock above the bench ticked with a measured patience that suggested the law had its own weather. Daniel Whitaker arranged the exhibits with a quiet ritual, aligning corners, smoothing paper. Sophia Ramirez sat one chair behind him, a neat stack of timelines at her elbow. Evelyn took her seat and felt the bench accept her weight. She steadied her breath the way she had taught children to steady their hands before ink. When the judge entered, the room rose and sat again, a small tide. Daniel spoke first. He did not dramatize. He let the chronology carry its own gravity. The housewarming, the first recurring withdrawals, the auto-forward email rule, the signature that was elegant and wrong. He handed up the exhibit containing the envelope placed at Evelyn's door, and he turned one page to the clause that admitted power into the quietest rooms of a person's life. "We ask for a temporary restraining order of narrow scope," Daniel said. "It would prohibit the respondents from accessing Ms. Carter's accounts, from compelling her to sign new documents, and from advancing any refinance or transfer of the house until the underlying claims are adjudicated. We are not asking the court to decide the outcome of property today. We are asking the court to pause a mechanism that has already begun to extract." The judge read for a long moment with a stillness that made the clock seem louder. "Do you have corroboration for the email forwarding rule and the origin of the bank access?" she asked. Sophia stood and, in the steady voice of a person who respects what paper can prove, answered, "Yes, Your Honour. The attached logs reflect sign-ins from a tablet associated with an address belonging to Mr. and Mrs. Carter. The email rule shows creation date and destination. We have preserved screenshots and metadata." The judge nodded once. Her eyes returned to the page with the placement clause. "This court is not inclined to bless urgency that sidesteps consent," she said at last. "The order is granted on a temporary basis. The respondents are enjoined from accessing Ms. Carter's accounts, from contacting her regarding legal or financial documents outside counsel, and from initiating any refinance or transfer relating to the property. The court further instructs that existing access authorizations be suspended pending review." Evelyn did not exhale in triumph. She exhaled a steady breath that tasted like oxygen after smoke. The bailiff stamped the order with a clean thud. Daniel folded the copies and placed one into her folder, the way a teacher tucks a graded paper into a student's binder, with deliberate care. The crews returned the next afternoon, under a sky rinsed with cold light. At noon, the neighbourhood on Maple Ridge subdivision woke to the rhythm of luggage wheels and car doors, to the ordinary hopes of people returning to ordinary routines. Evelyn parked a block away. She did not hide. She chose distance because clarity prefers a little space. Daniel parked behind her. A third car arrived, carrying a licensed inspector appointed to document the condition of the house for the court. The law moved forward, not with spectacle, but with clipboards. Jason turned into the street with Brooke beside him. Sunlight had sketched a pale bronze on their faces that looked to Evelyn like innocence borrowed from another life. They pulled into the driveway, and froze at the sight of the inspector photographing the exterior. The camera clicked with a gentle sound that nonetheless travelled. Brooke stepped out first. Her voice was precise and sharp. "What is this?" "You cannot be on our property." The inspector lifted a card that identified his authority. Daniel stepped forward and handed Brooke a copy of the order. "We are here under the court's instruction to document the condition of the property and to serve notice of the court's restraints," he said. Jason's gaze found his mother. He looked as if he had seen a map and still could not find north. "Mom," he said. The word seemed too small for the day. Evelyn stepped to the edge of the driveway. The gravel beneath her shoes made a small dry sound. She did not raise her shoulders. She did not lower her eyes. She held the folder in both hands, the way one carries something that has earned respect. "We asked the court to pause," she said. The court agreed. "No one will be placing papers in my doorway again. No one will be moving the future faster than consent allows." Brooke scanned the order with a speed that belonged to someone accustomed to turning words into advantage. Her mouth tightened when she reached the page that cited the auto-forward rule and the suspicious signature. "This is a misreading," she said. "We only streamlined billing. We were helping." "You created a rule that hid bills from me," Evelyn answered. Her voice was not cold. It was clear. "You linked accounts I did not authorize. You left a document that would have given you the legal right to choose a room for me in a place I did not choose." Jason stepped closer, palms open as if he could ease the air with gesture. "We did not mean harm," he said. His eyes held the boy from the photographs and the man from the logs. It felt temporary. It felt practical. We kept telling ourselves we would make it right when the refinance settled. Evelyn listened to his words, as one might listen to leaves in a quiet wind. They sounded like motion. They did not sound like weight. "I believe you wanted relief," she said. "Relief is not the same as right." Daniel handed Jason another folder. Inside, a letter from the bank acknowledged the revocation of authorizations. A second letter from a credit bureau confirmed fraud alerts. A third page listed the date of the hearing that would consider the matter in full. Jason held the papers as if they were heavier than they appeared. Brooke placed the order back into Daniel's hand with perfect politeness. "This will not hold," she said. The words had the measured cadence of a person who survives by predicting. "It will hold as long as the court directs," Daniel replied. "And the court is watching." Silence found a place among them, not an absence but a presence with its own shape. Traffic passed at the end of the street. A wind chime in a neighbour's yard answered with a small silver voice. Evelyn felt a line draw itself beneath the moment, firm and unbroken. She did not wish to injure. She wished to stop the injury. She turned to Jason. "I loved giving," she said. "I forgot that love needs a boundary to keep its shape. I will not forget again." She did not wait for permission to leave. She walked to her car with Daniel beside her, the inspector continuing his quiet catalogue of door frames and meter readings and serial plates. The work of repair is often made of lists. The afternoon thinned into a soft grey. At home, Evelyn placed the court order in a drawer labelled legal and the photographs of auto-forward settings in a sleeve labelled email. She changed one more password. She set a new rule that forwarded nothing to anyone. She brewed tea and waited for it to cool before lifting the cup. When the message from Jason arrived at dusk, she read it standing at the counter. The words were unadorned. He would attend credit counselling. He would repay what had been taken, even if it required months. He would meet Daniel's office on a schedule. He asked if she would speak with him when she was ready. Evelyn placed the phone face down. Readiness is not a favour you give when asked. It is a ground you stand upon when it has formed. She opened the window. Evening moved through the kitchen with the scent of rain about to begin. The apartment felt sufficient and honest. A small lamp on the counter turned the ceramic mug into a bright oval. She thought of Linda's sentence, the one that had gentled the hardest hour. Boundaries teach love how to approach us. She sat and wrote a short note on the first page of a new notebook. The date, the case number. The line, peace is not acceptance. Peace is protection. Across the room, the folder waited like a quiet companion. She turned to the window again and watched the street. A child's laughter rose from the sidewalk and floated into the room like a ribbon of air. Evelyn smiled, not because everything was solved, but because something essential had been set right. The future did not need to rush. It would come, measured and clear. Through the door she would open, and only when she chose. The house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that does not ache but listens. In the sink, a single cup dries in the last gold of evening. Papers rest where they belong, not as weapons, not as secrets, but as a simple record of what is true. If you lean in, you can hear the soft metronome of a life resuming its own rhythm. There was a time when love, for Evelyn, meant paying the bill before anyone reached for a wallet, saying yes before a question was properly asked, and building a future others would merely walk into. She mistook access for affection, convenience for care. When the message arrived, clear, concise, and devastating, it did not end the story. It revealed the shape of it. In that brief light, she saw how often she had disappeared in the name of keeping the peace. How many times the ground shifted under her, because there were no boundaries to hold it steady. What followed was not vengeance, but a patient return to self. She gathered facts the way you gather scattered pieces of a photograph, until the image could no longer be argued with. She asked the law to pause the rush of harm. She stood in her doorway and declined to sign away her own name. She learned what many of us must learn late, that love without boundaries is a door without hinges. It swings until it breaks. Here is the quiet lesson that remains when the voices fade. You do not have to perform worth in order to deserve respect. You do not have to finance a relationship in order to be included in it. Consent is not a courtesy. It is the frame that allows love to stand upright. In the end, the victory is not the stamped order or the organized files, though those matter. The victory is a woman sitting at her own table, drinking her tea while it is still warm, choosing when to answer and when to let the phone rest. If this story touched a place you know, if you have ever paid until you felt invisible, or kept the peace until you lost your own, share the moment when you first drew a line and found your footing again. Your words might be the hand someone needs in the dark. And if you want more stories that honor courage in ordinary rooms, that walk the long road from confusion to clarity, stay with us. There is room here for your voice, your lessons, your return to yourself. Boundaries are how love learns to knock. Let us keep learning together.